The U.S. House of Representatives have passed a bill to sanction the International Criminal Court in response to its arrest warrants for Israeli leaders, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, amid escalating violence in Gaza. This legislation highlights a growing divide over international accountability and U.S. support for Israel, while civilians in Gaza continue to bear the brunt of the conflict. In today's episode, we will discuss the ramifications of this bill amid the ongoing Israeli aggression in Gaza and the silence of the international community, not only concerning Gaza, but also towards the ICC, the institution tasked with delivering justice. Welcome to In Depth. In November, the ICC issued arrest warrants for Israeli officials, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, for war crimes in Gaza. UN News says that UN experts have condemned the US House of Representatives' illegitimate Court Counteraction Act, which seeks to sanction ICC officials investigating to prosecute US or Israeli nationals. The experts warned that such sanctions undermine judicial independence, promote impunity, and violate human rights. They called on the US to uphold the rule of law and respect the ICC's impartiality. As violence in Gaza escalates, the US Congress shifts focus from the humanitarian crisis to sanctioning the International Criminal Court for issuing arrest warrants against Israeli leaders. On January 9, 2025, the House passed the Illegitimate Court Counteraction Act, reinforcing America's support for Israel, which critics view as a threat to global justice that deepens the silence surrounding Gaza's suffering.
Tensions between the United States and the International Criminal Court have intensified amid ongoing Israeli military actions in Gaza. On January 9, the U.S. House of Representatives passed the Illegitimate Court Counteraction Act, which sanctions the ICC for issuing arrest warrants against Israeli leaders, including Prime Minister Netanyahu, over alleged war crimes. This bill reflects the U.S.'s strong support for Israel, despite international criticism of its actions against Palestinians. It passed with broad bipartisan support, 243 to 140, with 45 Democrats joining 198 Republicans. Representative Brian Mast defended the bill, calling it necessary to protect an ally from the kangaroo court. Critics believe these measures undermine justice and threaten ICC's ability to hold perpetrators accountable for serious crimes, including those committed during Israeli military campaign in Gaza. As the Senate prepares to review the bill, human rights groups have expressed concern, warning that these sanctions could damage the U.S.'s global reputation. The ICC, established in 2002, plays a key role in addressing war crimes, but faces opposition from the U.S. and Israel, which are not signatories to the Rome Statute. The backdrop of this legislative action is marked by escalating violence in Gaza, with reports of civilian casualties and widespread destruction. As tensions rise, the U.S. Congress's focus on sanctions and international judicial body rather than addressing humanitarian crisis raises questions about its priorities for foreign policy. In this charged atmosphere, the ICC's role and independent judicial institution is under threat, with potential implications for global justice mechanisms.
For more analysis, we're joined by Dr. Abdel Nasser Maki, a professor of political science from Ramallah, and by Dr. Munir Naseiba, a professor of international law from the occupied Jerusalem. Good evening, gentlemen, and welcome to Qnews. Let me start here with Dr. Makki. And from your point of view, what could be the implications of the Illegitimate Court Counteraction Act on the U.S. foreign policy regarding or with regard to international judicial bodies?
You mean that what is the implication of this?
Yes, what could be the implications, and the world, how do they view such an issue that is really reflecting on its foreign policy towards international bodies?
Yes, I think that for this matter, as you know, the ICC, they issued a decision in order to arrest Gallant and Netanyahu. But it seems to be that the Congress, the American Congress, that's refused this. And the Republican and some of the Democracy, that's decisions that they want to punish and make sanctions against the ICC. Mm-hmm. So I think this is one of the matters that should not be there, because the ICC is international law, and it is their decisions is against Israel because of the genocide criminal in Gaza.
It is the judicial body pertaining the judicial issues. Professor Nasiba, if we speak here about the ICC and those sanctions, and how would that really affect its ability to prosecute war crimes globally, or be as fair as possible towards seeing cases in front of it, particularly those committed by Israel?
Well, this resolution taken at the U.S. Congress is actually very dangerous to international justice altogether. In fact, I only could see it as an act against human civilization and the natural development of human civilization. The international community has worked for several decades in order to establish a court that has the jurisdiction to prosecute individuals who are accused of war crimes and crimes against humanity, not as an ad hoc tribunal in the same way that in the same case and the same way that happened after the Second World War and after Yugoslavia and after Rwanda, but in a way that a court has a jurisdiction over a huge number of countries and is using the law to prosecute those who are in charge of war crimes, crimes against humanity, or genocide. So this act that the United States is preparing for, and I believe that the action will start once Donald Trump has assumed his position in the White House in a couple of weeks' time, or even less. This act is a war against human civilization. This court has finally assumed some of its responsibilities in the occupied Palestinian territory. It has, rightly so, accused both the Israeli Prime Minister and the former Defense Minister of war crimes and crimes against humanity. This comes at a very tricky period of time when Israel is still continuing with its genocide. But I would say that I'm not very surprised. The United States is unfortunately complicit with the crimes that the Israeli government is currently perpetrating in the Gaza Strip. The United States has been arming Israel, supporting Israel, funding Israel in order to continue with this genocide and with the war crimes and crimes against humanity while it is actually happening, and while it is documented by several international organizations. So I can see how the US is really worried that the International Court of Justice has started to prosecute and to accuse individuals who are allies of the United States. And obviously the United States knows that if this court is going to continue its job, maybe some of the US officials will be also among those who are accused of complicity with genocide and of supporting war crimes and crimes against humanity. But my fear is, how is this going to influence the court itself? We know now that the court has two major enemies in this world. It has Russia, because Putin is one of those who are accused of war crimes and who has arrest warrants against him in the court, but also the United States now fighting this court. I believe that this is very dangerous. It needs support to this court by the rest of the international community. There are over 124 countries that are members to the International Criminal Court. They should support the court, and they should very strictly oppose the US policy against the court. That one country cannot decide the fate of a court that was established by the international community.
Indeed, what you're saying here is very important, since we're speaking about the ability of this court to carry out with its mission or its inability because of any pressures. If I may ask you here, Professor Makki, now how, from your point of view, does the bipartisan congressional support right, I guess Professor Makki, we lost contact with Professor Makki until we come back to him. Let me here ask you about what could be the potential consequences of US sanctions on the ICC for the international human rights advocacy and accountability mechanisms.
Well, it seems that the sanctions include revoking visas from officials in the International Criminal Court and staff members, also some financial sanctions on the individuals as well as the court itself. I believe that these sanctions can be bypassed. The International Criminal Court does not really need the United States. The United States is not a member in the court in the first place. The court does not need the United States. It needs the support of the countries that are members to this court. So if it manages to guarantee the support of Europe, Africa, Asia, those countries that have actually established the court and that are supporting the court, the effect of the US sanctions on the court will be minimal or next to nothing, actually. But it really depends on the way that the rest of the international community is going to deal with the court. If the rest of the international community is going to support their court, the court that they have established, in order to bring about more justice in this world, then the court will be more protected, and the US sanctions will not really be very relevant anymore. In fact, it's maybe important. Yes, sorry.
No, please go ahead.
Well, Donald Trump, in his first presidency, in his first term, he actually applied sanctions on the International Criminal Court. This was during the time when prosecutor Fatou Bensouda from the Gambia, she was the prosecutor of this court. And during that period, Trump did impose sanctions on the court, but the court did not really affect the work of the court. The sanctions did not affect the work of the court. The court continued working and continued taking decisions regardless of these sanctions. Also, there were Congress members who warned the court during the time when the court was considering the question of jurisdiction over the state of Israel. They warned the court that they will impose sanctions on the court. Nonetheless, the judges of the court did not take this into consideration, and they took the decision to impose their jurisdiction on the territory of the state of Palestine. So the court does not really care.
Yes, let me here ask you, Professor Nusseibeh, how does such legislative actions align with the historical US positions on international law and institutions like ICC? And definitely we're speaking about how it reflects its foreign policy and positions towards certain entities.
Well, it actually shows the double standards that the United States uses when it deals with international justice. When the International Criminal Court decided to issue arrest warrants against President Putin of Russia, the United States was very happy. They thought that this is a very appropriate decision because it was a decision against an adversary of the United States and not an ally. But when the court made the same decision regarding Israeli officials who are currently actually doing much worse crimes in the Gaza Strip, they are committing a fully fledged genocide in the Gaza Strip, the United States was not happy with that decision and they opposed it, and now they want to sanction the court for it. So what the United States wants is that the International Criminal Court would only prosecute and punish the enemies of the United States and would continue with providing impunity to the friends and the allies of the United States. This is obviously not the way the rule of law is supposed to work.
But how here might the U.S. actions against the ICC influence or reflect on its relationship with other countries, particularly those who are signatories to the Rome Statute?
I think that this is yet to be seen. It depends on how these countries are going to take the U.S. position. And I believe that many of them will be, maybe not all of them, but many of them will be angry at the United States. They will not be happy to see that the United States is trying to undermine the system of international justice that they have been supporting over the past years. This court, again, is not a US court. It's not a European court. It's not an African court. It's not an Asian court. It's a court that was established by an overwhelming, by a majority of the states of the world in order to advance international criminal justice in the world. So I believe that a number of countries will certainly have a strong opinion against these sanctions, but I don't know how they will act. Are they going to take any positions, any practical positions against the United States, or are they going to only criticize the step of the United States? But for sure, we can see that every international human rights organization is very critical of this step that the United States is going, is deciding basically.
Now, in what way can human rights organizations leverage this situation to promote accountability for war crimes committed by all parties involved in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, for an instance?
Well, human rights organizations continue to document crimes, continue to submit evidence to the International Criminal Court, but also evidence to other international organizations that are interested in human rights and that work on advancing human rights, including the Human Rights Council, the special rapporteurs, commissions of inquiry, and the like. This is what international human rights organizations, NGOs, that's what they do. Now, it depends on states to, the actual enforcement of international law, the actual enforcement of international treaties. Is primarily the job of states. If states decide not to take this responsibility seriously, then human rights will continue to deteriorate, as we have been seeing actually over the past months. We can see that the genocide is ongoing in the Gaza Strip, and it hasn't stopped, despite the fact that all the facts are well documented, and the whole world is watching this genocide happening live. Why hasn't it stopped? Because we haven't seen enough sanctions on Israel and on the states that support Israel during this genocide, including countries like the United States and Germany and others. Mm-hmm. So this is the main, issue. That
yes.
Yeah.
Let me go here to Professor Mekki, who returned to us. Now, Professor Mekki, from your point of view, how does the congressional bipartisan support for sanctions against the ICC reflects the U.S. stance on Israel's military actions in Gaza, and how does it reflect its foreign policy?
I think this is the sanction from the United States of America against the ICC. It's not it's not legal because, and I think the credibility of the United States of America will touch here because, as you know, they are the country of the democracy and also against all the violation and the genocide. But now, when the ICC issued these decisions against the two criminals, which is Netanyahu and Gallant, and the United States of America and the Congress is against this. So I think the credibility of the United States of America in the world will be, that's will be touched. And that's mean the United States of America and their rules, like the democracy and the human right, will also affected by this sanctions against ICC. Otherwise, it should be the two persons should be arrested because the ICC, it's independent, body, and this is according to the human right and the humanitarian law that they made all the genocides, criminals in Gaza. So I think the United States of America should not go in this, that's matter, and they should be avoid and far from what the ICC is decided on their decisions.
Now, Professor Mekki, do you think public opinion can really play a role in shaping congressional actions regarding the ICC and its investigations into the Israeli crimes committed, and definitely regarding their leaders?
You mean the public opinion?
Let me repeat the question. Now, from your point of view, do you think that the public opinion can really play a role in shaping the congressional actions regarding the ICC and its investigations into the Israeli crimes and against Israeli leaders?
Yes, I think the public opinion should play a vital role here, and also they should.
Can they really play that role in the first place?
Public opinion. Yes, I think it will be. It's good. Should be, and it must play a vital role here and push and pressure on the United States of America because this is criminal. This is crimes. So the public opinion, they will deal with all these crimes as or the criminals as crimes. So because of this, I think the public opinion have the right and also could have the encourage in order to go ahead with to arrest these two persons. The public opinion in all the world should also be unity against this criminal and genocide in Israel. Otherwise, it will be spread in other world. So it should be there, and it should be also arrested the two persons, and should also push on this matter.
What, from your point of view, could be the implications of prioritizing sanctions over addressing the civilian casualties in Gaza during this legislative process, particularly from the humanitarian aspect?
I think, again, what is the main question?
Again, how do you think, from your point of view, can be the potential implications of prioritizing sanctions over addressing civilian casualties in Gaza during this legislative process, particularly from the humanitarian aspect?
Yes, I think for this matter, it is crimes. So for the United States of America or the legislative from the United States of America, it should not be there. It should not be interfere in this matter. It is independent court, and I think, as I said before, the United States of America should not interfere in this, and they should let the ICC to practice their role and to go ahead with this court or trial.
Right. That was Professor Abdel Nasser Maki, a professor of political science, and Dr. Munir Naseiba, a professor of international law. Thank you both, gentlemen, for your fruitful insights. And I guess that brings us to the end of today's episode of In Depth. Many thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more updates on Qnews.